So today, we're going to look at a new idea. Not a new idea, we're going to look at an old idea from a new perspective. I like that better. So my talk today is about how to start over. I think that's really relevant in our lives right here and right now. Because there are things in our lives that are working, and there are things that are not in our lives, that are not working. And I think we all want to let go of those things that are not working or get them to work. And so we're going to explore this idea of starting over. And it's not about setting a resolution. You hearing that? It's not about setting a resolution. 90-some% of the resolutions don't work. They never work. So we've got to sort of let that go. And Einstein said if you do the same thing over and over again expecting a different result, that's insanity. So that's why we come to a place like Agape, because we're into seeing things from a different perspective. We're into trying ideas in new ways. And as we do that, we open ourselves up to greater possibilities. And I think one of the key things that we've got to realize that in any situation in life, it's not that you can choose A or B. You can choose A or gazillion other possibilities. You see, we've been brainwashed into believing that we can have this or that, and not realizing that there's an infinite way that we can experience it and express it. And we get to choose the direction, but sometimes the events along the way we don't get to choose. They sort of synchronistically happen within us because of the energy we're putting out. So the question becomes, what energy are we putting out? And is it moving where we want to go, or is it keeping us locked in where we are? So it's as simple as being present. And you're going to say, well, Lee, that's nothing new. But think about, what does present mean? If I'm present right here, the past does not exist. If I'm present right here, right now, the future does not exist. If I'm present right here and now, my mother who's dead does not exist. My father who's dead that doesn't exist. My brother who's dead doesn't exist. Anything that bad has ever happened to me doesn't exist. Anything that anyone did to me doesn't exist. Nothing that ever happened to me in the past or any person who's not in my line of vision, it's not real. It's an illusion that we drag up from our mind and we bring into the present moment, and we get to relive a self-created idea. Anyone have an ex that they still think about? And every time that ex comes into your mind, do they own you? There's one that said no. I only heard one no out of there. There's a lot of work to be done in this group. Claudia just said no. Thank God for a belated. Amen. We're not going for testimonials today. We're going to go into Jesus pretty soon, but no. It's as simple as being present, because in this moment, right now, the only thing that I'm present in is I am delivering a message that's channeling through me to you. That's all that matters to me. Nothing else is relevant. Nothing else is going on in my mind. And when nothing else is going in my mind, I no longer am reliving all that other nonsense. So let's take it further. I can't say this gentleman's name yet. I am working on saying this gentleman's name, okay? But I've started a book. It's about 300 pages, and I'm 8 pages into it, and I can only read 2 pages at a time because it's causing me to go deeper into my thoughts. It's causing me to go beyond my thoughts because I realize my thoughts are limiting me. So I love this statement. He said, there is something exceptional, unique about that present event, which the previous or the coming do not have. There is a livingness about it, an actuality. It stands out as illuminated. There is a stamp of reality on the actual which the past and the future do not have. He's saying clearly that when you are present in this moment, it's so real to you that you're locked into it. You're experiencing it in your mind, in your emotions, in your senses. You're experiencing it so fully, it becomes more real than thinking about the past, more real about anticipating the future. So there's a gift in being present. But how often do we Practice the presence. 1:30 this morning, I woke up. Why? Who knows? Wide awake, cannot sleep. Went down to my chair. I have a meditation chair down in my basement which is my spiritual room. And in my chair, I sat and I said, oh, let me get comfortable. And I said, wait a second. Let's just be present with the uncomfortableness of being awake, not knowing why, being physically uncomfortable. Let's just be present with it. So I started, and I just sat, and I became present with what I was feeling. Not judging it, not trying to change it. Do you hear that? I'm not trying to change it. I'm just being present with it. I closed my eyes, I began to breathe, and I started to breathe in a healing light through my crown chakra, and I moved it up and down my chakras. And I probably did it for 30 or 40 minutes. And the next thing I knew, it was 6 o'clock this morning. See, I made peace with where I was. I didn't fight against it. You see, we do too much to fight against things that are happening into accepting them as it's just the way it is and to honor that. And by making peace with it, we're not battling against it. You see, when we're battling against things, there's a push and a shove, and it's a conflict. And when you're pushing against and shoving against something, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But if you accept it, it can't get bigger. And when it can't get bigger, it just dies off. And it takes practice to do that. Here's a great one. The past is a memory, while the future is simply an imagination. Do you realize that? And we take memories, and we take our imaginations, and we bring them into the now, and we make them real. And it causes us tremendous, tremendous pain. When we are living in the past or the future, we are not in the flow of life. Do you get that? We are not in the flow of life. Life is always moving toward a greater expression of ourselves. So if we're trying to be a greater expression of life that's happening to us and through us and as us, we must be present. But if we keep bringing the past or anticipating the future, we don't allow life to flow through us. And then there becomes, here we go, gang, mental and spiritual constipation. And you know, the more you allow that constipation to build, it gets more and more and more unpleasant. But when we can accept what's happening, we've got a basis where we're free from all of that worry, all of that unnecessary fear, and we can move forward. The past only exists in our memory, buried there until we bring it out. We must make peace with our past and let it go. This was a great analogy I heard the other day, and I forget who it was, where I got it. But let's take a picture. Let's create a big map of our mind. Let's just lay out. Let's just assume this whole room is our mind, okay? And let's pretend, do you all know what an orb is? An orb is a round ball of energy, okay? That round ball of energy we have control over. And we control that energy because that light that is that orb goes into parts of the mind. It can go, oh, this is a past event. Oh, this is even a prior past event. Oh, this is a past event that relates to this past event. And wherever that orb shines the light in our mind, we experience. And so where that orb goes depends on our level of awareness. If we are aware and we know where we want to be, we take that orb and we move it into our mind where we choose it to go instead of it taking us where we want to go. Now, here's the key about that. In society today, it has a huge influence on us. Radio, television, internet, Facebook, social media, magazines, newspapers, parents, they're all hitting us with information, ideas. And we don't realize that these waves of thought are coming at us and they're influencing us. And they can move our orb. They can move our orb to focus on areas of our life that we don't want to be in. They're not relevant to us. Well, people say, well, you've got to think about it. You've got to worry about that. It's natural for you to worry about that. That's what people will do to you. The closest people to you will be the ones that try to bring you back into your problem. And you got to say, wait a second, no. I control where my orb goes. And my orb is simply, where am I putting my focus? Where am I putting my thought process? And if you start taking control of that, you're mastering the thing called awareness. That's the greatest gift that we can give ourselves, is, are we aware? In a moment, it doesn't matter. This morning, I made some hot chocolate out there. It was artificial. I made it. I know. I cheated. It wasn't the healthiest thing. But when I had it and I took it to my lips and I took that first sip, I was so aware that it tasted so good, because I knew that I made a choice to make it. I made a choice to drink it. I was accepting that I made the choice. I accepted it was outside of my normal paradigm, and I managed to just allow that it was sensational. That's all I can say. And you know, if you're going to do something, for God's sakes, be into it. If you're going to make a mistake, be into it. And you say, why would I be into a mistake? So you can feel it. Because if you can feel the mistake, you'll know whether you want to do it again. But if you're numb when you're making the mistake, you don't know, and you'll repeat the mistake over and over and over again. But if you're in a situation where it's blissful and it's joyful and you're so fully present in it, then you're going to do it again and again and again. Because you've anchored it. Most of the time, we get into habits or rituals or routines that become numb. They're numbing to us. I observed this in India when I was with a guru, and there was a ritual done every day for 16 days, every day. And I watched. Very few people were present. It had become rote. It had become habitual. If something becomes habitual, why do it? Isn't that, when you're thinking about from the perspective of awareness, if you're doing something habitual and you're not aware, that's a waste of time. You're better off doing something where you're fully aware and engaged in life. So we're going to go back. And so everyone's talking about resolutions, changing their life, making their life different. What's my life purpose? Let's get that out of the way. Your life purpose is to be so fully present and to experience life to the fullest while you're in the human body and mind. Do you get that? Because you're in the human body and mind. You're not here to transcend the human body and mind, because you came from the transcended place and you're going to go back to the transcended place. So if it's whole and perfect and complete and you're at oneness up there, there has to be a reason that we're in these temples that we call bodies. And I believe that it's to experience life to the fullest. I think the infinite that does not experience wants to express and experience itself through each of us. That's why it created itself as us. We are individualizations of the infinite. Each of us is unique and perfect in our whole own way. And we cannot give up that. As I was talking with my soul brother Niranjan yesterday, we were talking about this idea, and we were exploring the idea of freedom. And if you really break down the soul, the thing that drives the soul the most is its freedom to express. And think about that. Where does freedom come? Freedom to choose what I want to choose. Freedom to say what I want to say. Freedom to act the way I want to act. Freedom to feel the way I want to feel. Freedom to do the type of job I want to do. Freedom to be with the type of people I want to be with. Freedom to be in the type of relationships I want to be with. Freedom to this, freedom to that. Freedom to think what I want to think. Freedom to practice spirituality the way I want to think. You see, anytime you are confined and restricted, you are out of the flow of life. Because the flow of life is a free flow. It's a river moving, a current going. And if something's an obstacle, it's like a big boulder that spreads everything or sends you down a different path. And so what we're here to do is we're here to just, through our unique perspective, experience life. And you're going to say, well, Lee, what if it's not for good? Think about this. Let's just get that out of the way. Life is always for more life. Did you hear that? So no matter what you do, if it's for a greater expression of life, you're in the flow. If you're going against the flow of life and it's going to cause pain and misery for people, for yourself, that's not the flow. Do you get that? That's not the flow. So it's not that there's a right or a wrong. It's a matter of what is it that you're desiring to be, and through that being, desire to experience in life. Because here's the critical thing. I've been a minister for 12 years, and I realize that I have not changed a single person's life. Not one. All the work I do, I've not changed a single person's life, because the only person that can change their life is them. Do you get that? And so many times we want to rescue. We want to be the person who can save someone, to help someone, to do that. We cannot do that. They can. Now, along the way, we might support them. We might support them as they find their path. But they've got to do it their unique way. Because if you start coming in and helping them, and they will no longer feel free, a resentment will build. Do you get that? You see, freedom is, I want to heal my... So when I get sick, I saw this... post on Facebook from a dear woman that I went to college with, and we were buds in college. And the interesting thing about it, she said, the reason why men can't have children is because they can't handle the pain. Well, that's a race consciousness, isn't it? Do you know what my comment back was? I said, the reason men can't have children is because they chose not to get stretch marks. I think that was a brilliant choice on my part to come into this human body and not have to go through what my wife experienced. Now, I'm not making light of giving birth, because giving birth is a magnificent thing. But being a father is a magnificent thing. Not giving birth is a magnificent thing. So we can't judge one or the other. Do you make sense? So the question is, don't buy into all the garbage people put on Facebook. That'll, you know, anyway. There's so many times I bite my fingers because I want to type responses, and in the role of being for more life, I cannot comment out there. Here's the interesting thing. Desire is a memory of pleasure. Fear is a memory of pain. Do you get that? So when you start thinking about the map, remember the big map? Remember you got your orb? When you're going to your pleasure centers, that's where desire comes in, right? I want more of that. That was good. I want more of that. There is a place in Chicago called the Chicago Diner, and it's all vegan. And they have the best Reuben sandwich in the world. The best Reuben, no meat. Can you even imagine that? When I was in meditation the other day, I was visualizing my orb, and my orb took me to Chicago. Why? Because I had pleasure when I ate that. It just, all the sauce was dripping down, the sauerkraut, all of that. It was so good. But then the other day, I dreamt about what it was like for my brother to pass. You know, at the holidays, we tend to bring up what's going on. And I watched the pain that my brother went through. And there was a lot of pain. So the question I asked, was it serving me to be there in that memory? No. Why? It wasn't my journey. Do you get that? My journey is unique to me. If I try to be, I'm going to use Beth's favorite word, an empath, then when I'm an empath, what I'm doing is I'm absorbing all the pain of everyone that's around me that comes in contact with me. Well, how is that serving? It's not. I believe that being an empath is a chosen thing, unconsciously chosen, modeled to us by others before us. We can be understanding to people, but we can't take on the brunt of their life, because guess what? It's their life. Now, sometimes people look at me and say, well, you're very not heart-centered. Well, that's an interesting point of view. What's heart-centered mean? That's a really good idea. What does heart-centered mean? Heart-centered to me is that I will always be authentic and real with whoever I'm with, and anything I say to that individual always be, from my perspective, a higher expression of life. That's heart-centered. Now, some people would say you're too direct. Well, that's coming from your perspective. I happen to be direct. I also happen to be very loving. I have a soft side that's there, that when it's necessary, it's brought out. But when I'm teaching, what I find out is people don't get it unless you're direct. You can't push a button. When you're teaching, you got to press the button where the person's going to have pain in order for them to feel so that they'll question anew. But if you're coddling and you're nurturing and you're loving, or supposedly loving, because we've got a whole misperception of love, that person's button is not going to get triggered. Therefore, they're not going to be able to lift and raise themselves. And isn't your job, the only purpose of a relationship is to support and grow each other. That's it. That one's the thing, support and grow each other. Only reason you're in any relationship. If that's not happening, get out. You're wasting your time. You're going down the wrong path. You're trying to go upstream instead of downstream. I'm feeding you a lot of different ideas today because I know that change is in you. There's something in you that wants to be expressed even greater than it is. But you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone. You're going to have to step into the unknown. Because what you want is in the unknown. The known is what you got. Do you get that? The known is what you got. Do you want that? If there are things that are in the known that you want, keep doing that. But if there are things in the known that you don't want, you've got to step into the unknown. And that can be scary. Starting over. It begins right now. It begins with a desire to be a greater expression of you. It begins with a thought that's different than the thought you've had before. It's an action different than you've had before. It's a feeling different than you had before, followed by another thought, another feeling, another action, so that you're moving toward. It's always a movement forward. Think about that. Anytime it's a movement back, you're going to the past. Moving forward and being present in the movement is living in the now. It's becoming the greatest you that you can be. I watched my granddaughter last night on a video where she actually crawled for the first time. And the joy about her taking those little crawl steps, moving forward, and the joy of her blowing bubbles like this, and doing that all the way crawling up to Alexa and kissing the screen thinking it's her grandma and grandpa. You see, that's what life is. And it wasn't about, well, she's going to dirty the screen, which the old Lee would have thought. It was about being present and allowing this child to give unconditional love, and even more importantly, for me to receive it, for me not to judge it. You see, the thing that separates us from love is self-judgment. Because rest assured, you cannot judge another unless you're judging yourself. If you're accepting yourself, then you can accept everyone else. So today, when you go home, get in front of the mirror. Take a look at yourself. Put a smile on your face. Say, I'm going to stop judging you. I'm going to like you just the way you are. I'm going to like everything about you. And when you do that, you give yourself freedom to move your orb in the pursuit of pleasure. Think about that. Every time you're feeling bad, ask the question, where am I putting my orb? Where's the focus of my orb? Okay, let me shift the focus of my orb over to the pleasure zone. And remember, pleasure can continue for infinity if you choose it to. But then again, it's always your choice. Let's pray. I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask that you go to our website, agapecsl.com. Once there, click on the donate button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. Or if you would like, text your gift by simply dialing 972-532-6976. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to you in the world. I would ask that if you like this message, to please subscribe to my YouTube channel under my name, Lee Wolak. Again, I want to thank you for joining me in the Agape community as we learn how to better self-love through conscious living.